Good evening, everyone. Here I am coming to you from Prince George, Canada, up in the northern interior of British Columbia, Canada. Tonight I'm going to read. We did read some stories from Ontario, and tonight I would like to read a story from one of our prairie provinces, Manitoba. There are three prairie provinces in Canada: Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And they're basically our farming country, the big farming country, mostly vast flatlands. You can see flatlands forever. Okay, I'm going to read you a story tonight called Who Called? Or Who Calls? There's a Cree legend about love and loss set in the beautiful valley of the Qu'Appelle River in Saskatchewan. The river flows west of Regina through a valley renowned for its echoes and reverberations. The story is told of a Cree brave who paddled his birch bark canoe through the valley at night to the Cree village to claim his bride, a beautiful young woman. In the darkness, he heard a young woman's voice utter his name. "Qu'Appelle," he cried out. "Who calls?" There was no answer. Then he heard the voice utter his name again. "Who calls?" There was no answer. When he reached the Cree village, he learned to his sorrow that the young, beautiful woman had died during the night. Her dying words were his name. Ever since that night, travelers on the river, when they listen attentively, may hear the voice of the Cree brave crying out, "Who calls?" Isn't that a nice one? That was a very nice one. I'd like to read you another one from the prairie provinces. I'm going to read you The Haunted House, and please just excuse me for one moment while I find my glasses here. It's kind of easier to read with glasses on. Okay, so now I'm going to read you another one called The Haunted House. George H. Ham made a name for himself as a journalist and raconteur. In later years, he served as the advertising manager of the Canadian Pacific Railway. In 1877, when he was a 30-year-old journalist, resident of Winnipeg, he and his wife moved into what he called the haunted house. They took possession of a little frame house just south of Old Grace Church on Main Street in Winnipeg. Tradition held that it had been erected on an old Indian burial ground. During the night, strange noises were heard, he wrote in his Renaissances of Raconteur. The stove in the adjoining room rattled like mad, and investigating proved nothing. There was no wind or anything else visible that should cause a commotion. A door would slam, and on going to it, it was found wide open. One night there was a loud noise as if some tinware hanging up on the wall in the kitchen had fallen. And so it went on. The basement was the source of one problem. One time, the cellar was filled with water coming from where? Goodness only knows. Though it was said that there was a slough through that property years ago. Anyway, the cellar was full of water, and it had to be bailed out. Ham procrastinated. So his wife engaged some local boys to do the bailing. But lo and behold, when the trap door was open, there wasn't a drop of water in the bloomin' cellar. It was dry as a tin horn. We never ascertained whence came the water or where it went. But by this time I had got accustomed to the prances and pranks of the house and didn't care a continental. That's an odd saying. In due course, the Hams moved out, and the next tenants found the house not to their liking. The building was removed to the north end, and some years after, on recognizing it, I called to see if the noises still continued, but they wouldn't let me in. I don't pretend to be able to explain the odd noises, Ham concluded, whether they were spirits of the past and gone, Indian braves showing their displeasure at our intrusion in their domain, or were caused by some peculiarity in the construction of the house and its environments. I cannot offer an opinion. But as we got accustomed to them, they didn't disturb us at all. And we got rather proud of our ghostly guests, whose board and lodging cost us nothing. That was a good little story. And I'm going to read you one more quick short one, another one from the prairies, and then I'll leave you for the evening. Thank you for dropping in to listen. And if you like my readings, you can subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. That would be good. Thank you. So this one is called The Lost Room. And this is in Alberta. The Banff Springs Hotel is, I believe, up near Lake Louise in the Rocky Mountains. Banff Springs Hotel was built overlooking the picturesque beauty of the Bow Valley. The luxury hotel was built by the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1888 in the new resort town of Banff, Alberta. The story goes that in the early 1900s, when the first of the new wings were being added, the architects made a serious error, leaving space for a room with no doors or windows. They revised the blueprints to disguise their error and instructed the builders and workers to seal off the area and keep quiet about it. When the new wing was partly burned in the fire of 1926, the lost room was found. It was empty, of course, but attention was drawn to its location along one of the corridors, the very corridor that had been the focus of the eerie disturbances. Night watchmen complained that a shadowy figure flitted down this corridor. There were rumors of calls for room service being met by an elderly bellhop when all the bellhops in the employ of the hotel were young men. No one could figure out who he was. That is not the end of the strangeness in the hotel. The Rob Roy Lounge is said to have numerous ghostly visitations. Guests have reported seeing the apparition of a bride who falls down the stairway and breaks her neck. Staff members have reported seeing a headless bagpiper. Not to mention disembodied carolers in the men's room, as well as a deceased barkeeper who informs imbibers when they have had enough to drink. And that's all I have to read tonight. Join me again. I will be back. I'll try and be back tomorrow. And I will read some stories from the West Coast, from British Columbia, the province I'm in. British Columbia and Newfoundland are said to be the most haunted provinces in Canada. In Newfoundland and Labrador, off the coastal area, you have a lot of ghost tales about ships and sailors, sunken ships, treasures, buried treasures, and whatnot. On the west coast in British Columbia, we actually have some roads which are haunted. There's a couple of hotels in Vancouver that are very haunted as well. And it's a fascinating subject. I find hauntings fascinating. I'm not sure I believe in hauntings. I do believe that in the residual energies of perhaps that were left behind of a trauma or an incident that happened in an individual's life. I'm not so sure I believe in possession and whatnot, but hey, it's a big, mysterious world out there, and anything is possible. Thank you for listening in tonight. Coming to you from the northern interior area of British Columbia, and we're into our nice, beautiful spring now. We had to broke a record the other day. We had a big snow dump of about 2 inches. No one was expecting that. Anyway, thank you all for listening in tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the stories, and I'll see you again next time. Stay blessed. God bless.